Welcome, builders of the internet. My name is Jessa and I work as a quantity surveyor in the construction industry. Today I thought I would talk about how contractors are actually chosen to do the building works, which is a part of my job called tendering. This is the process of obtaining a price from the contractor or builder to do the works, then appointing them to do the job. In particular, I'll talk about the main types of tendering procedures and the advantages and disadvantages associated with each of these types. As always, you can find my sources in the description.
It's building on my mind.
Main types of tendering strategies. There are three main strategies when it comes to choosing a contractor: single stage, two-stage, and negotiated. Single stage. Single stage competitive tendering is the most common form, where the name kind of already describes what's going on. Essentially, a number of contractors are invited to give their cost for a project and price the works competitively, which basically means as low as is reasonably possible against other contractors in order to win the job. Usually, there is a lot of information available at this stage, so once the winning contractor is selected, they should be ready to start getting on with building as soon as possible. In order for the comparison to be fair, everyone is given the same information at the exact same time, then they have a due date for when they need to provide their submissions by. Sometimes there could be amendments or changes sent out in the meantime before this due date, where the architect or the client might change their mind about what they want in the final product, and the contractors will then have to price these changes accordingly using the most up-to-date information available. There are also occasions when the deadline could be extended because of this, so it's important to keep on top of any dates. If you submit the proposal too late, it could mean you'll no longer get considered for the job, and this is pretty bad for two reasons. One, you've automatically wasted your time putting this tender together and from winning this extra work for your company, and two, it could mean that you don't get offered any more opportunities from these clients who might be able to give you more work in the future if you didn't win. Anyways, once the contractors have all submitted their proposals, it's the job of the client's quantity surveyor to compare all of these to make sure that everything is compared on a like-for-like basis. For example, sometimes the contractors might decide to exclude a big chunk of the works or may have forgotten to price some elements altogether, so they may get sent a bunch of queries to give a cost for these items or to provide any additional information required. It's worth noting that the final decision isn't always going to be made based on cost. Sometimes you might want to base it on the quality of the submission too. Say if the contractor has put a lot of thought and consideration into the program and all the other documentation that they've provided. When weighing all of this up, the quantity surveyor will be able to provide a recommendation for who would be the most suitable for the job, and then it's up to the client to make an informed decision for who to enter into a contract with. Two-stage tendering. Two-stage tendering is increasing in popularity over the years and is usually the option when there is limited time available on projects. Again, multiple contractors will be reached out to, but this time at an earlier stage where there is less information available about the design. It saves time because it means the design can be developed at the same time as choosing a contractor, and there is an additional benefit where the contractor may be able to use their first-hand experience to give technical advice and input about the project. At this earlier stage, the contractors won't be asked to price the whole project as there simply isn't enough information available, but they could be asked to price a specific element of the works or just give their design fees for how much it would cost them to develop the design with the client. The contractor might also need to give a more detailed information about the program and their own proposals for the project, so you usually find with two-stage tendering that the quality of the submissions is a more significant factor in the basis of the final decision. Once the preferred contractor has been selected, they'll work with the client's team, including but not limited to the architect, the engineers, the quantity surveyors, and so on. Once the design is complete, the chosen contractor will present their bid at this second stage to say how much the works will cost, but this time with no competition. Negotiated tender. The third tendering strategy I'll talk about today is a negotiated tender, which is basically a single-stage tender with only one contractor. This contractor will give an indication of their initial price for the works, then usually the client's quantity surveyor will have to negotiate this price down to make it a more competitive and reasonable price for the client. There is another subcategory of negotiated tender called Early Contractor Involvement, or ECI. This is gaining popularity in infrastructure projects, which require a lot more engineering input because the contractor's experience can be really invaluable to the success of the project. ECI includes the contractor leading a design team, so this route actually has some similarities with the two-stage tendering method mentioned earlier. Negotiated tenders can be great for saving time, though a lot of government and public bodies won't actually allow this strategy because it can be difficult to prove that these prices are actually good value and in line with the current market rate, which I'll explain further in the next section. Advantages and disadvantages. You may well have already picked up on some of the pros and cons of each of these routes based on what I've already said. But here's a summary of the advantages and the disadvantages with each of these types. For single-stage competitive tendering, you are more likely to get a competitive rate in line with what's currently being offered in the market, because if contractors are cheaper than their competition, then they are more likely to win the work. With there only being one stage to submit costs, it adds some degree of clarity and certainty for knowing what the cost of the project would be if all goes to plan. The design is usually pretty robust and detailed, so the client may already have an idea of the cost, duration and risks of the project from what their quantity surveyor has already reported. However, the disadvantages are that the project can take longer overall because the design development and construction process are kept separate. This can also lead to miscommunication and misunderstanding of what the client actually wants to be done, as the contractor may not interpret all the information as intended. There is also a disadvantage for the contractor because they have to put in a lot of effort to try and win the work. So if they don't win, it means that all that time, planning and resource has gone to waste. Two-stage tendering has the benefit of potentially saving time, which I have already mentioned, but there is also the possibility of there being a more collaborative process with the contractor getting involved with the design. So this can help develop relationships and keep the supply chain more informed, say specialist subcontractors and suppliers finding out further in advance if their services are required, so that they can be better prepared for the project. With the initial competitive tendering, it means there is a degree of competition too, so you can get some reasonable rates for the design process. The contractor is also a lot more aware of their own capabilities and what is feasible for them to build. They may even be able to suggest some cheaper alternatives to what has been proposed already, so the project has a good chance of being buildable and within the contractor's limitations. The disadvantage with this option is in the second stage, where the contractor submits their actual price for the works. There is less chance of competitive market rate if the contractor has no competition at this stage, so there may well be a hike in the prices to earn more profit. This route also requires a lot of good communication between the client and the contractor, so if this isn't upheld by either or both parties, then the collaborative benefits and the clarity in the project gets lost. Negotiated tendering can be similarly beneficial because there is a chance for a lot of integration between the design development and the contractor involvement, which can then save time and cost with the tendering process, especially with suppliers and subcontractors getting involved and preparing earlier. There are other benefits too, such as the client having more flexibility for who to choose as their preferred contractor, and the rates might be more transparent because they haven't got any competition to worry about. However, these costs are often a lot higher than what you would typically find on the market, because you've already pre-selected the contractor, so they have nothing to lose really. This can lead to the strategy being seen as anti-competitive and exclusive, which is why public and government bodies usually don't allow this process. There is also a heavy reliance on trust for this strategy, and if it's not carried out with a lot of structure and control, it could lead to conflict even before the works have started. Thanks for watching this video. There is so much to talk about with the tendering and overall construction process, which I will probably cover in other videos, so feel free to check out my channel for more content to do with construction, sustainability and mental health, and please like and subscribe if you enjoy it. That's all I have to say for now. I hope it helped build on your mind.
Thanks for watching this channel, it's building on my mind. Check out my other videos, but first hit the bell and comment, like, subscribe. Please, it really helps with the